Let's go ahead and formally get this Cocktails and Conversations started. My name is Maria Whipple, and together with Stephanie Bonebrake, we help create events. And this is so much fun to create events that connect all of you together like tonight. So thank you so much for attending. One of those ways that we do is via Cocktails and Conversation. It looks like I'll have to do a lot more in-person events because this seems to be such a fun thing to do. In recognition of powerful women who have made an impact on boards, we have our special guest, Danita Rodibaugh, over there with us this evening. But before we get started, we want to share what the Purdue for Life Foundation is all about. The video, please. Thank you.
Stay connected, get involved, give back. We help people who love Purdue do just that. The Purdue for Life Foundation was created in 2020 by uniting the Purdue Alumni Association and the University Development Office. We're here to serve and advance Purdue, working across the West Lafayette campus and far beyond it. Purdue for Life offers you opportunities to engage with the university throughout your lifetime. Whether you're a graduate, friend, or fan, Purdue for Life offers countless ways for you to show your love for the old gold and black. At a high level, Purdue for Life includes the Purdue Alumni Association, President's Council, John Purdue Club, and the Parents and Families Club. The Purdue Foundation Student Board and Purdue Alumni Student Experience, or PACE, the largest student organization on campus, are also part of Purdue for Life. We connect Boilermakers throughout the world to the university through region and interest-based clubs and networks. In fact, we have more than 70 alumni clubs around the country, international alumni networks in more than 100 cities across the globe, and 11 affinity networks. And we're just getting started. Our flagship digital magazine, Purdue Alumnus, and monthly digital newsletter, Boiler Update, are two ways we help you stay connected. Our Boilermaker Station Welcome Center is the main hub for visiting alumni, fans, and prospective students and serves as the launchpad for all admissions tours. We welcomed more than 40,000 visitors in 2022. We're offering a wealth of new and expanded opportunities for you to get involved through alumni living, lifelong learning, volunteerism, mentorship, and travel. And you don't want to miss our signature events. There are countless opportunities for people who love Purdue to give back and make an impact. And what an impact you made during the fiscal year that just ended. The collective generosity of our Purdue family reached a historic high. Talk about a giant leap. You are powering Purdue. Thanks to you, Purdue continues to strengthen its reputation in teaching and research while remaining affordable and accessible to brilliant young minds. And because of you, Purdue is stronger than ever. Together, through small steps and giant leaps, we can grant even more opportunities for future Boilermakers as we ensure Purdue grows ever stronger.
It's our privilege at Purdue for Life and our persistent pursuit to help people who love Purdue stay connected, get involved, and give back. On behalf of our entire team, thank you for helping Purdue take the next giant leap. Boiler up.
Well, thank you so much, Maria. And I just want to also give a shout out to Maria and Stephanie because the programming that we do with the Purdue Women's Network could not happen without these two ladies. And they're very humble and they don't always tout themselves, but the growth that we have seen with our Purdue Women's Network chapters, as well as our other affinity networks that we have, has been exponential over the last 2 years with these two ladies. I think they went from 6 affinity networks and then made that up to 12 and then increased that to 7 affinity network chapters just for the Purdue Women's Network. So if you would indulge me in a round of applause for these two ladies. So tonight is a special treat because I am here with one of my favorite ladies, Danita Rodibaugh. It's been an absolute pleasure to be working with Danita over the last several years, and I am absolutely thrilled to be working with her as the chairman of our board for the Purdue Alumni Association. So I've been here with the Alumni Association for 7 years now, and a lot of that, 6 of that, has been working with Danita. So it's such a fun thing when you have great respect for your volunteer leaders. And that's what I have for you, Danita. And I know we're both going to get teary-eyed at some point because we have such mutual respect for each other. And I also am thrilled that we have a woman president that I get to work with on this board, and that doesn't always happen. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. But before we both get emotional, I'm just going to ask if you want to start telling us a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about you, your journey with Purdue, as much as you want to share there.
Well, we'll try to get the emotional things out of the way first because Julian knows I just have an incredible amount of respect for her and just love working with her, and she is just phenomenal. And before I even start and get this emotional thing out of the way, another woman that I just admire so much and look to and lean on is one of our Board of Trustees members, Teresa Carter, General Carter, that's with us. And Teresa started on our board as a board member, and then I had the privilege of chairing the search process when Teresa was nominated to be a trustee. And the university is just incredibly blessed to have her leadership. She's a general. She can ask some tough questions. She keeps us on task in board meetings and in the executive committee. She's just a phenomenal person and brings so much value to our executive committee. And when I saw her walk in the door, she's here for trustee meetings. She didn't fly in from Colorado, but it just so special to have you here, Teresa. Thanks for being here, and we all appreciate what you give to Purdue, help Purdue. But just a little bit about me and my family. I grew up near Greentown on a family farm, and just enjoyed, that lifestyle, and had 4-H experiences. I have 2 sisters and a brother, and as lots of families, looked up to my sister Kathy, and then from there, my husband Dave, showing pigs at State Fair. How many have met your husband showing pigs at State Fair? And he was here as a senior at Purdue, and I was an incoming freshman, and dated through on and off, of course. He went into the Air Force. He was in ROTC when he was here at Purdue. And we married. I graduated in 3.5 years, and we thought he was going to get overseas duty, Teresa. And then married, moved back to his family farm there in Rensselaer, and that's where we raised our family. We have 4 children, boy, girl, just like I ordered. All are Purdue graduates, of course, and 2 are married to Purdue graduates. Our oldest son, his wife graduated from Butler, but she's now a Purdue mom, so got her in the family. And our youngest daughter's, her husband graduated from the other college in Indiana. But we all have handicaps to overcome, and he's just a great guy. We just love him, so we're incredibly blessed. And my husband and 3 of his brothers farm together, and as Maria said, I'm employed on the farm, manage the office there, and then as she mentioned, I chair the board of advisors and consult with Curious Plot. They're a hybrid marketing agency. As far as my Purdue journey, as I mentioned, my older sister, she went to Purdue, and so being part of 4-H and junior leaders and being on campus, we had football season tickets. It was just natural that I would go to Purdue, and already had a circle of friends here. I have a cousin that's 2 years older than I am, and he's like a big brother, so he went to Purdue. So it was kind of the natural thing to do. Just really, found my home here at Purdue and enjoyed all those experiences and had opportunities, even though I graduated in what was then Consumer and Family Sciences, now HHS, most all of my volunteer time except PA has been in the College of Agriculture, and had lots of wonderful opportunities on advisory boards, on the Dean's Advisory Board. And then Dean Plout, Karen had appointed me to a position representing Purdue on the National Council for Agriculture Research, Extension, and Teaching. So now 2 of us represent Purdue on that board. And then a lot of Purdue ties got me to Foundation for Food and Ag Research. So even though I don't officially represent Purdue there, we do get a lot of research dollars back to Purdue through that board. So I think between my husband's family and our family, we're approaching maybe 60 Purdue grads. And like I said, my grandson is a freshman here. And even though I tell the grandkids, we have 9 grandchildren. I tell them they can go anywhere, but I'll tell you, it's special when they come to Purdue.
Absolutely. Well, you can see how humble Danita is because every time I talk with her, I see that she's got more board experience than I even knew about. And I've known her for 6 years. And I'm always in awe of how much you serve. And so that's kind of my next question is I've known you for the last 6 years and I've worked with you on the PAA board, but you've served on so many boards. And these are all volunteer boards. These are nonprofit boards for the most part. And this takes a lot of time away from family, time away from work, time away from your consulting. Where did that desire to serve come from? What made you first interested in serving?
Well, I think for me is maybe the way I was raised. My mom and dad were both involved in organizations in the community. Dad was a school board member. Mom was involved in church and leadership. And I think then, too, as I mentioned, through 4-H and junior leaders. That gives you that passion for being involved and getting back and mentoring younger members. And that's probably where the root of that came from. And then that sense of community, too. I said I was involved mostly on the agricultural side. And if anybody's involved in agriculture, it is a very small world, not only in the state, across the nation, but globally. Many of us know each other, connected through different paths that we cross continually with each other. So just had, that opportunity. And it's just, I've been incredibly blessed because, I think one of the questions we've talked about, and we'll touch on it later, I don't ever remember setting out to be on a board or run for a board. I've always been asked or encouraged, and God's perfect timing.
So I know not everyone is familiar with board service. In fact, we asked a lot of the participants online and that were coming in person, what kind of questions do you have? And a question that came in several times is how do I get involved? And so I just want to set the groundwork for board service. What does that look like? For those who aren't familiar, in a nutshell, what does a volunteer board member do for an advisory board or a governing board in a nonprofit? What does that look like?
Well, I think, if you see an area you'd like to get involved in or an organization that has the board, you need to volunteer at local events or you volunteer on a committee they have. And, those experiences, if you pour into it, you'll get much more out of it. And, that's how you can then serve on a board. I know with our PAA board, there's several ways that you get there elected. We have downsized our board, but still that's by region geographically, and you can submit, self-nominate, and run for a seat on our board. The privilege of the chair is that we have some at-large positions that we can be appointed to, and that's actually how I arrived at the board. I was appointed by the then chair, Steve Murphy.
Yeah, that's always interesting to think about how do boards fulfill their board member requirements? How do they appoint people? And so I know that some people that are interested in this, there are a lot of ways that you can get involved in a board. So we'll talk about that a little bit as we get closer. What's the average time commitment that you're giving? I mean, I know what it's like for the PAA board. We meet monthly, you and I and the board secretary. We meet twice a year in person. We meet as an executive committee. And these are just the times that I'm meeting with you. But you're also doing things behind the scenes as a chairman. So when you're president of the board, you're setting the agendas, you're doing all that. Time commitment wise, I know we're not the only board. What does this look like for you?
Well, I think, yes, time management is important. And with any board, I think that we as leadership, I think we're all guilty of it. We minimize the time commitment. When Steve asked me to serve on the PA board and he talked about what the time commitment was, because I was just coming off of another national board and had some other things, I think he was realistic, but at the same time, you and I know what happened soon thereafter. And we had this transition, and we saw the history of the Purdue for Life, and there was a time that we were without a CEO, so Dan Dawes and Ryan Kay and I served as interim CEOs with the counsel of Teresa and others. And the time commitment there, as you know, because a lot of time we were on the phone to you because it was during COVID and we couldn't be together. It was quite a bit. And even for the PAA board today, with our role, with our technically a contractual relationship, but with our collaboration with Purdue for Life, we still have responsibilities to, pour into the engagement staff our views on, how we conduct these pillar activities and how we engage our alumni. We have our committee that oversees our election process, not only of our trustee members, but also the 3 that the Alumni Association has, but then also positions to the board. And then once you're on the EC, as Teresa can attest to, there's more time commitment because you have more meetings, but then you're overseeing, committee activities too. So, to try to quantify, even today, Matt Folk and I, we were, texting back and forth on some projects, and we've been working on a couple of other things behind the scenes, just some administrative things, and it does take time. I've always been one that if I commit to a board, I'm all in. You show up in person. Teresa and I will agree on that one. But you show up, you participate, you don't come late, you don't leave early, you study your lesson. You know the materials, you know the agenda, you know the background information, especially if you're on a committee. That board is counting on you to bring that expertise from that committee area to the board meeting. And it's just, when you talk about, how you get into leadership, it's just, for me, those intersections in time, especially being a female, and when I went on the National Pork Producers Council board, they had another group, and that was my highest aspiration, was maybe to get on this big group that represented all the states. And we were actually merging the men's organization and the women's organization into one, and totally unexpected to me, I was elected to one of those 3 positions. But that taught me so much about, letting go of pride of ownership of an idea, and, having your voice heard at the table. And when I went on to the U.S. Meat Export Federation, that was just timing because the person that represented pork was appointed to a position in D.C., so they needed another person from the pork industry there. It was just timing. Like I said, it was just all God's perfect timing.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I am always in awe of the number of volunteers that we rely on at Purdue to do this work. We have so many volunteer positions across the university. Every single college that we have relies upon volunteers. The Purdue Alumni Association would not exist without volunteer leadership. And so that partnership that exists between staff members and volunteer alumni, it ties us to that mission of being a conduit to bring alumni back into Purdue more than anything I can think of. I mean, Maria, everything that she does with the chapters, with the networks, our clubs, our international, it's all volunteer based. And so that was a big piece of the vision with Purdue Alumni Association, is making sure that there is always a way for alumni to get involved with Purdue in Purdue for Life. And you were a big piece behind that, is just making sure that the programs that allow anybody to engage were continued. So thank you for that. I mean, we just could not do what we do without our volunteers. So speaking of, when you decided to put your name in the hat for running for our chair or president of our board of directors, what inspired that? What made you decide, I'll take on this leadership role and say, I'll give even more time. I'll put even more of myself out there. What inspired that?
Well, one, a passion for Purdue. But 2, like I shared earlier, I just had other board members that encouraged me, said, my experience in board leadership, and because of the changes that they were thinking about, and they just thought that I might bring something to the board. And I'll be really honest, and especially the older I get, I did look at others that were in leadership or maybe in leadership, and I've had some wonderful experiences with leadership teams, and I've had some that were challenging. I grew from that, but they were challenging. So I did look at that, and I'll tell you, just of course I've referred to Teresa, but Steve Murphy was such a mentor of mine. He was actually CEO at Pork Board when I was president, and he was chair at the time of the Alumni Association. Dan Dawes has been a longtime friend, and he was a great leader, and especially kind of as we got our feet on the ground with Purdue for Life. And Ken Sam and I had a great relationship, and when he was chairman the last 2 years, he was great at conversing with me, and I'll tell you, I learn every day from Ryan Kay, that's our vice chairman. He is the most incredible young man. I tease him that I'm his Purdue mom. He's my kid's age, but he is just one incredible person.
So I can't help but notice that every name that you just mentioned is a male, which is great. We've got a lot of wonderful male leaders. But I actually did some homework, and we've had less than 10 women in the position of board president for the Purdue Alumni Association since 1890. Less than 10 women as president, and you're one of them. And so I'm curious, how do you feel that women may lead differently in positions like this?
Well, I do think, and I have, I usually extend trust pretty freely, but I'm very selective of those that I thoroughly trust for advice. And I think that I've been open to leaning on those that I trust, like Teresa. Martha Reese, that was on her board, I still call Martha way too much for advice. She was so instrumental in the Purdue for Life and bringing that legal expertise to that. And I think that, as women, I think that we are, just because we have a tendency to be more nurturing, we're concerned about the relationships on the board and that everybody is respectful and kind. I think, we are sensitive to the way we want to be treated, so we want to listen to others, to be open to listening, open to hearing. And I think that, we can't be afraid, though, to use our voice at the same time. And I think that board members, male or female, that may think, because I try to always be kind, may think I can't be tough. I can be when needed. And so I do think that we lead differently in some areas. But, people, especially on a volunteer board, you just want to feel valued. And I think women do a really good job at valuing others. And, there's sometimes I've been disappointed in, leaders, male and female, that they don't spend time to make the people feel valuable. Because in a volunteer organization, that's what it's all about. And that's why we're here at PAA. We're here to inspire alumni to get involved and give of their time, treasure, and talents.
Very, very well said. Very well said. And I really appreciate your inclusive approach to leadership. You're always making sure that people around the table have their voices heard. And so that's kind of going into my next question. I think every woman in the room and online too has probably been at a table where you don't feel like your voice is being heard. You might be one of few women at a table. We find that many Purdue graduates have been in very male-dominated fields. And so it's difficult sometimes to have that courage to be a lone voice at a table. So what advice would you have for women who are maybe in a male-dominated field? Or we also know that most board members, the majority of board members are men across the nation. We have more men board members than women. So to make sure that you are taking your space at the table, sitting at the table, not sitting at the chair that might, not be around the table, what advice do you have for women?
Well, I think maybe something I mentioned before is to make sure you always come in prepared. Make sure that you stay ethical. You're always grounded in truth. We've all been in a committee meeting or a board meeting or whatever where someone, to get their point across or to maybe try to convince other board members to follow their suggestion, maybe free with the facts, and to make sure you're always grounded in truth, I think is really important. And then there again, not being afraid to speak up, but to sense the room when the best time to speak up. And, there again, I think that experiences that I had being the only female in the room or one of the only female in the room, while sometimes it was tough, And, we had shared at our exec meeting some maybe experiences I had growing up that made me tougher, and that you don't take anything too personally. My dad, I don't want to get us off time, so give me the sign. But my dad taught me a really valuable lesson, and oh my heavens, my dear brother, please forgive me for sharing this story. And I know this, when I went home in the summers, or I would work in the field, drive the tractor in the field. And if anybody's ever driven a cultivator, if you put two of them in the field, you can't pass each other. So there was one time which my brother and I were usually, he's 5 years younger, but had much more experience driving a tractor than I did. My dad put us in the same field, and he put me in front of him. And I thought it was because he was frustrated that I was going so slow because I didn't want to cover up the corn. And so the whole day I was just tied up in knots, and get home, and I was probably not very happy, and Dad probably sensed I wasn't very happy, and he probably said something to me, and I don't know, I was probably pretty verbal at that point in time, college. And he taught me a really important lesson. He said, it's not always about you. I put you in front of Kevin to slow him down, not to speed you up. So what a valuable lesson as we think about, if it's criticism in a boardroom or someone questioning your viewpoint or you not feeling like your voice is hit, you got to remember it's not all about you. It's about the greater good. And that's been a really important lesson. And, I've shared in board meetings or whatever, I've observed many people that have sought positions or ran for positions or been on different boards. I think you and I the other night we briefly talked about the United States Meat Export Federation that I'd served on, and that's got 9 different sectors. So there's traders and exporters and cattle and lamb, pork, whatever. But my observation has been if somebody is so concerned about running for the next position or attaining this chairmanship or being president, that you forget about the mission that you're on. And sometimes they don't make the best board members. If you're always focused on the mission, whatever is before you will come naturally if you really work at being the best leader. And the most important role in being a leader is lifting others.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm sure that with all the boards that you've served on, you've had some difficult decisions to make, difficult challenges to work through. We know that being a board member, one of the duties is exercising independent judgment. So regardless of the groupthink that's happening, the discussion that's going on, every single board member is accountable for that vote and how they put that vote out there. And sometimes that's not popular to go against what others might be thinking. So I'm curious, what's one of the biggest challenges that you faced on a board, and how did you work through that?
When we had talked about this before, I thought of a couple, but I think that something that we're all working on the boards we're on, is to attain more diversity on our boards. And I think that we need to think about diversity in a broader sense, because not only do we want, racial, ethnic, male-female diversity, but we also want diversity of thought. And, we've talked a lot about on our board, I keep looking at Teresa, poor thing, that we need age diversity, we need geographic diversity, we do a skills assessment and a college assessment to make sure that we're broadly representing the college just across. And so there's other boards that I've served on that we're intentionally trying to make the thought process more diverse. And like I said, it's diversity in the broadest sense. And then I think, one of the greatest challenges I think of leadership is that as a leader, as especially an officer, you just know more. You have access to more information. You have access to more inside information. And I think that that's the hard thing, because other members or other board members may not always understand a decision you've made. And especially when I've been in a position as president to have to be part of personnel issues, and you can't share. And, to remain ethical and not talk about that staff person or, why the move was made, but at the same time to absorb the criticism or to maybe even worse for me to see some of them criticize somebody else because they don't understand the situation. I think that's hard. That it's a privilege of board leadership to have that inside information, but it's also at times more difficult because people don't understand what you've based your decision on.
Yeah, that's wise. So, mentoring is one of the things that we're dedicated to with Purdue Women's Network and really with Purdue for Life. I mean, we are really trying to ramp up our mentor efforts. And I think mentoring also comes in the form of board mentoring. I know we have made the decision on the PAA board to pair a new board member with a veteran board member, and that's worked out really well. To be at your level, Danita, and to have served as much as you've served, I know that you've had probably a lot of mentors that have poured into you. Tell us a little bit about what that mentoring relationship has looked like and maybe some of the best advice you've been given to get you to where you are.
There's been many, and I've mentioned many of them today, and it's interesting as I look back and I think of some of those mentors. So many of them are Purdue grads, but the intersection of my life that I worked with them or were mentored by them, it really wasn't in a Purdue setting. I think of Ted Preeb. He's really responsible for my position on the Curious Plot board, but yet, he's a Purdue grad and he's a former chair of PAA too. And, I mentioned Steve Murphy and, what a wonderful mentor he was too. But, there were other women that were the only women in the room that have mentored me. And when I think about, try not to get emotional, but, I think about Teresa's experience in our military. And my dad was in the military, so it's just so special to me. And like I said, my husband was in the Air Force. To do what she did as a female in the military. And so, I just been blessed with those, to look to and you, and what you've brought and the intersection in time between, with PA and Purdue for Life and being able to, keep you when we formed our relationship with Purdue for Life, and to be able to work with you is just, an incredible opportunity. But, if I could, through all of it, pick one thing. Steve Murphy had said when I was considering another, board position, and I asked him for advice, and he knew many of those that were involved. And he said, just remember, you only have one reputation. So guard it well. And that, I think that at any stage in life, as we make decisions, to weigh that.
Yeah. Whew. So for women, maybe here in the room, online, who are wanting to step into board leadership, it is not for the faint of heart. What advice will you give them?
Well, first, like I said, I think you have to have a passion for it, a passion to give back. And, as you mentioned, I will say the Curious Plot board, that is a paid position. So out of 30-some boards or whatever, that is the only one that did not say shall serve at no compensation. But, I think you have to have a passion for it. But, there again, I think if you pour into it, you always get back more. And, there again, it all is about the people and the relationships and the friendships. I have friendships all over the world. And it's all from volunteering. But, you have to, like I said, truly be interested, truly have a passion for the mission. Not a pet project, but a passion for the mission.
Yeah, I would agree. I think passion for the mission is probably the most important thing. And it is so rewarding to be able to serve and to work with other people. That's one of the ways that I feel like I've been connected to so many individuals is through volunteer service. It's very different from working in an office with somebody day in and day out. The volunteer role is such a privilege to get to know somebody personally and professionally through this joint shared mission that you've got. Yeah. So you are just now into your presidency, almost 6 months into your presidency with Purdue Alumni Association. You've got a year and a half left. You are a Boilermaker through and through. What is next on this next year and a half journey as our leader?
Well, as you mentioned, Boilermaker through and through, not only with PAA, but I'm a President's Council member, John Purdue Club member. I could just say I'm a fan, but Teresa would probably jump up and say, no, you are a crazy, crazy fan. We actually have season tickets, basketball, football, volleyball, baseball. So we're on campus a lot, so it's a good thing we live close. But, I think one of the things that I would really like to accomplish through our leadership is to continue I think the video did a great job, but continue the message of the relationship between the Purdue Alumni Association and Purdue for Life, and how so much of the engagement work that Purdue for Life does is poured into by the resources from the Purdue Alumni Association. And, now more than ever, I think the reason for being a member of PAA. So if anybody here is not a member, anybody listening not a member, please join PAA. A portion of the dues goes back to a club or shares with colleges. It's a way we can raise money for engagement work. It's also, our past slogan of loyalty lives here. It still lives here. It's still, you raise your hand that you're loyal to Purdue. It gives you an entree to volunteer opportunities. It's just such, valuable thing. And I thought about this earlier, so it's not just because Teresa was here. But, how could any Purdue alumni not value the opportunity to vote on 3 of our trustees? And the only way you do that is to be a member of PAA. So there's so many benefits of how we can help engage alumni with our university, but I honor and value that opportunity.
Yeah, well said, well said. And that's such a great thing that we have with Purdue. I mean, it's written into the state statutes that members vote. And so that alumni and members, friends and fans too, have an opportunity to have a voice in our leadership. And that is democracy at its finest right there, that we value our alumni voice. So thank you for sharing about membership. We have a few minutes for questions. And so I know some questions have been submitted online, but I did just want to say, if anybody here in the room has questions, that we would entertain that too. Stephanie has a microphone in the back if anybody has some questions for Danita. She is really a sage of wisdom that has been leading on so many ways. So if you've got a question, go ahead and just raise your hand. While we look for that time, I'll go ahead and choose a couple of them that were submitted online. One that I think is really interesting because you have this experience too. Advice for women with young children, balancing time and family with serving in leadership. What was that like for you? You raised 4 children on a farm and you still had time to work your way into national boards. How did that work? What advice do you have?
Yes, I did. And, I think for me, because it was closely tied to our livelihood, what I was doing, because we farm, and I was involved in agriculture organizations. And I know there were times that I wasn't there. I prided myself in trying not to miss too much as a mom, but at the same time, I think it made me a better mom because, I was involved in something bigger than myself. And at the same time, it gave my kids some really neat opportunities. I'd have them join me in DC, and I'd, get a private tour from another Boilermaker, Bill Dahl, on the Hill or whatever. But there were other opportunities that they had because of my volunteer leadership. But, I think that to teach them to give back is important.
Yeah, absolutely. And they saw that, and your kids are giving back, and they're wonderful Boilermakers out in their own communities, and they saw mom and they saw dad giving back. So I think that is so important to have that as a message for them. Any experiences that you want to share about your journey to becoming a board member, valuable experiences that you learned along the way?
Well, I think I touched on, quite a few of them. Just be true to yourself and be prepared. You can't contribute in a conversation if you don't have the back. It's like, going back to school. You've got to know the subject matter, and you got to study. I remember when I first went on the National Pork Producers Council board, and they were doing committee assignments, and my background, I had my volunteer with pork and mostly been on the product side, had been on the nutrition side. And I get this committee assignment, and it was the Environment Committee. I didn't know anything, and I was the skeptical side of me maybe thought I was being set up, but as I later learned, they saw the opportunity there, which oh my gosh, I can't even begin to touch all of the phenomenal opportunities I had because of that. But another person that got his master's degree here at Purdue, he sent me, the committee staff person sent me a stack about like that. And boy, I made sure I studied that because I wasn't going to that committee meeting not knowing anything. And so I think, you come in prepared for service.
We talk a lot about on our board as we're trying to get people acclimated. National statistics say that somebody's most active year on a board is their third year, which is usually the year that they're rotating off. So, the irony is that you're not going to know everything when you start serving on a board, but having a mentor with that and then being unafraid to ask questions and not thinking that everybody else in the room knows the answer. Sometimes those fresh set of eyes of a brand new board member are the best gift that you can give to that organization. One of the questions, and I'll go ahead and answer part of it, and we can both chime in. How do you become a board member? Well, I'll just speak for Purdue. We do have a new volunteer portal right now. And if you go to purdueforlife.org and click on volunteer, that's going to take you to our volunteer portal. On there is going to be listed various board positions that you can raise your hand and say, I'm interested. That might be on the Purdue Alumni Association board. It might be on a college board. It might be on a network board or a chapter board. It might be on a club. So we're in the process of trying to find out all the ways that Boilermakers, friends, and fans can get involved through volunteerism. And board service, we are always looking for people to be willing to stand up and say, hey, I'll be willing to be a board member. You do not have to know everything. You have to be willing and have a passion for the mission. Other thoughts on how to first maybe step onto a board?
Well, I think you shared that, or if you see a board that you would like to be involved in, just get to know some of the board members or ask about service or how you get involved. It's okay to be the one to raise your hand, but at the same time, I think that we all as board members need to do a better job of inviting people that we see, friends that we know, people we encounter at other Purdue events, to think about board service. I think it's incumbent on us, to lift others.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Do we have a question?
I actually have some comments on the board before I get to the questions. So Joanne, we all know Joanne. Sharon, I think she's from Washington, D.C. She's one of the Women's Network chapter leaders. And who else has said, thank you so much for your presentation. Michelle Crabtree actually said, so inspirational. I had my 17-year-old daughter join me to watch and listen to Danita's wisdom. Thank you for your leadership and your service. Cindy O'Connor. Cinda O'Connor, sorry. How fun to listen and learn to someone I've known and loved for years. Thanks, Danita. Okay, we do have a question from Lisa. She said, I've served on several small boards for groups that are primarily women, and we have a hard time finding volunteer leadership. Members are reluctant to be leaders for a number of reasons. One reason they give is that they don't have experience and that they think they have much to offer. We can find committee chairs, but no one wants to have the top positions. Any suggestions?
Well, like I said, I think it's incumbent on us to be encouraging and to nurture other women and to lift them. We all like to be asked. We all like to be invited. And, like I said, I was just so blessed because every step of the way I had others that encouraged me. And we need to make sure that we're doing that for others, that we need to encourage them.
And the world needs more women leaders, am I right?
Yes. And I just want to, chime in one thing before we run out of time. I just, with a video with Purdue for Life and having this opportunity, I just really want to thank some of those that had the vision for the whole Purdue for Life. Being on that National Council for Ag Research Extension and Teaching, I work with other land-grant university people from all over the country, and many of them have heard about our Purdue for Life and how we did it and what we did. And, some may know the background, some may not, but President Daniels had this, and I'll just say he encouraged us, and those of you that know Mitch knows that it was strongly encouraged, to pursue another model. And how, Matt Falk, that is now CEO, and Steve Murphy, and others, the committee that went around and visited other universities and how they did it. And in Purdue, fashion, true Purdue fashion, we were more innovative. We took the giant leap. We took pieces of what we saw was the best, and it was a major, major leap. And I just really appreciate and honor their foresight and guidance from Teresa and the other trustees in that conversation. But that was bold leadership. Bold leadership, and I'm so grateful.
Well, we are grateful for you, Danita. And so these beautiful flowers are here for you. And I think that we also have a way of letting you all here that are in the room. We're going to do a drawing to see about you taking home some of our beautiful centerpieces as well. So with that being said, can you please join me in thanking this amazing lady, Danita Rodibaugh? And I'm going to turn this back over to Maria until we are ready to do our drawing. So I know you've got some closing comments for us as well.
We're actually missing the bowl. Oh, there it is. If you could actually draw the names, that would be wonderful. I think we can draw 7 names. Is that right, Stephanie? 8.
Lisa Arafun. Oh,
Okay.
Lisa, congratulations. You get to take home your centerpiece. Sanjia? No?
How's it spelled?
Sangana?
Sanjana?
Yes.
Yeah, that's me.
I'm sorry. You also get a centerpiece at the table behind you. Angie Klink, you get to take one
Wow.
home. Aw, Teresa Carter, you get to take one home on a plane, huh?
I'm happy to put it back in the mix.
Okay, okay. Jasmine, you get to take one home. Amanda? Hey, you get one too.
Amanda.
How many more do we have?
I don't know how many did you draw.
We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
3 more.
Okay. Carol,
Yeah.
you get to take one. Kristen. Yay.
Hey.
And finally, Sabrina. Sabrina. Yay.
Okay. Well, wonderful. Thank you.
Jillian, can I do an audible real?
Yes, audible from Teresa Carter. Yes. Let me give you my mic.
So Danita, real quick, there's a lot of young ladies in the audience today, and they're not going to immediately step on into a board leadership role. So were there some things as you were coming up, maybe your first 10 years working in industry, that you felt either opportunities or things that you did that put you in a position to be competitive or considered for a board later on?
They're volunteering on committees, volunteering at a legislative day, just different events that organization may have to volunteer doing that. But I think I go back to, I think it is different today, especially on those boards that are looking for diversity and younger leadership and new thought. And I think that the younger ladies in the room would be surprised how much we may value their opinion and that fresh look. We have, as you know, we have 4 non-board members that serve on our it's our Purdue Alumni Advisory Committee. That's our kind of our go-between with Purdue for Life. And that fresh look from some of them that had no board experience, I think was very valuable. So, if you really understand the organization, know what they're involved in and their activities, if it's a local organization, they may have just a gathering of some kind that you can go and volunteer just to be part of. But just to get to know people and get to know the organization better, I think is, the best way.
Mm-hmm. And I think we might have a couple of students in the room. Our PACE program, the Purdue Alumni Student Experience, is all about teaching leadership and getting board exposure. So for our students, that's a great opportunity if any of our students are watching. And then in the wisdom of the Purdue Alumni Association board, they actually carved out a position position for somebody under 30 that will always be on the board because we wanted to make sure that we had that age diversity. And so that is a nationwide position that is elected by the membership. But it was actually one of our student representatives who's serving in that now because she raised her hand as a student and said, I'm interested. So sometimes that's really what we need, is just to say, I'm interested, to cast that vision for yourself, that you're willing to put that out there and be willing to serve. So please consider a PAA as well, because we will have that position coming up in 2025. You're welcome. Yeah, question.
Hi, so I'm a junior, and I'm actually on that PACE board of directors, which is so much fun. It's really, really cool. So I am a junior in political science, and one of my favorite things is the civics literacy program, which is done through the Ackerman Center for Democracy. And I've been chatting with one of my friends who's on SFAB, and she is double majoring in agricultural economics and agriculture education. And just yesterday, over Thanksgiving break, she illustrated a children's book about how prominent agricultural products are in everyday life. For example, corn is in plastic, and plastic is in everyday life. But so we've been chatting about how cool would it be if, similar to the civic literacy program, just like how there's a podcast that informs viewers on, civic education, what if there was like a Purdue University program that also educated people on agricultural policy, agricultural contributions, especially since we are a land-grant university, and our agriculture, sector at Purdue is so, that's essentially the premise of our university. So if we were thinking about doing that, we had no idea where to start that, if we should do start a petition to do that, or if we should talk to someone about it, but that's a project that we were really hoping to get started. And given your expertise in the field, what suggestions would you have?
Well, I think that's a great idea, and let's talk further, because the Center for Commercial Ag has podcasts, and we have a number of centers within the college that could do something like that. And actually, today I missed a Purdue Farm Policy group meeting because, preparing and knowing I was going to be here tonight. But we do have a group of Indiana producers, Indiana farmers, that get together and talk about farm policy. So to be part of that and maybe work with Dr. Foster, he heads that group now, to do that type of podcast or that educational program. So let's visit, because I'm sure that there's others in the university, and especially in the College of Ag, they'd be glad to help.
Okay. How fast did that go by? I do have a microphone. Okay. I'd just like to present you a gift for speaking for today, our conversation. I'll give you a hug. Absolutely. Oh, thank you so much, Danita. Thank you.